What's going on about Our Country here with my top 10 games of 2019, ending with what I think is the best game of 2019, my game of the year. First and foremost, I have to state the obvious. This is just my opinion, folks. Feel free to say whatever games you like in the comments below, what you think is, best game of the year. But don't comment on the video saying that I'm wrong and what I like is wrong. If you don't understand how opinions work, you will get blocked. It's just literally that simple. I get annoyed when I look at the comments and just someone just saying that someone else's opinion is wrong. Like, you can give your opinion, but don't tell someone else's opinion is wrong. I'm not going to explain how opinions work. You should all be old enough by now when it comes to you, if you're on YouTube, to know how opinions work. Um, Also, I only play on Xbox, so don't say this list is missing PS4 exclusives or Switch exclusives. I don't own a Switch or PS4, so therefore I can't add exclusives to this list that I haven't played. This is going to contain Xbox exclusives and multi-platforms, and that's about it. Anyway, starting this off at number 10, Remnant from Ashes. This game was unexpected, as I don't think anyone saw this game being any good. A shooter that uses the Souls formula. Most Souls-inspired games are all melee-based, just like the Souls series itself. No, they're not shooters. But just by looking at the game, you wouldn't expect much from it. But it's actually a pretty good game. As someone who plays a lot of Souls games and Souls-like games, Remnant is definitely worth playing it. One of the best games to follow the Souls combat formula, but also capture its own identity. Now, I hope this isn't the last time we see this game. I hope this game has more than one sequel. It's a very good game. It's I would say look at some Twitch videos of it, some streams. Look at some reviews of it from like Angry Joe Show. This is a game worth your time. It's a game worth your experience. It's a game worth playing. It's a very decent game. The combat is interesting. The mechanics are fun. The bosses are they scale. There's some bosses that are pretty easy. There's some bosses that are actually difficult and legit like bosses, and there's some bosses that uses what I like to call thick difficulty, as in the boss fight itself is easy to deal with, but they throw in other things to make it seem harder than it actually is. But even with that, the game itself is a fun experience. Coming in at number 9 is Telltale's The Walking Dead final season. Now, I know for a lot of people, the Telltale games are not liked nowadays, and a lot of people don't care about the Telltale's story games because to them it's not really a video game, it's just an interactive TV show or interactive movie. But I thoroughly enjoyed The Walking Dead series from Telltale's, and this final season ended in the best way that it could have ended. We as fans, we're given a proper ending for Clementine's story. And that's something that you don't see a lot in a lot of video games nowadays. A lot of video games don't give you the ending you want, the ending that you think will be good for the character. Some games have really shitty endings. Some games have big cliffhanger endings. Some games just don't give you a satisfying ending. This game gives you a satisfying ending for our main protagonist, Clementine. A satisfying ending. Now, obviously, it's not too hard to give us a satisfying ending because all Telltale has to do is make sure she lives. Like, that's basically how you get a good ending when it comes to this franchise, is make her live. Because throughout the game, people who you like die. Even the main protagonist for the first season, he dies. Spoiler alert. So it's like, the best thing that you can do is just have her live. It doesn't matter how you have her live, just have her live. But even beyond just Clementine living throughout the season, it was a solid season. It's a good season. I enjoyed it, and I wish this wasn't the end of the franchise. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing the story turn into a TV series. But not to mention, we got this season during a time of turmoil when it comes to Telltale's. There was turmoil and hardship for developers. Telltale shut down during the middle of this game's release. This game released with 2 episodes, then they shut down. That's it. The end. No one knew what was going to happen with the rest of the franchise. People who bought the season pass for the season had no idea if they were going to get their money's worth. They just spent all the money on the game and not getting the rest of the game. We didn't know if we were getting the rest of the season, but Skybound stepped in and made sure that the story got finished. So thank you, Skybound, because it's a good story. It's a very, very good story, and I really enjoyed the final season. I don't care if anyone says that you shouldn't include, a narrative game like this on your list. I am. Deal with it. At number 8 is Resident Evil 2 Remake. This is by far the best remake that has been released to date. This game is phenomenal. Whether you're someone who played the original series, all those years back, or someone who played it, for the first time with this remake, you would enjoy this remake. It's so good. Capcom did a great job on it. I played as Claire because Claire's bae. Claire's my favorite character from Resident Evil, and I love her so freaking much. It's Claire. I don't have to explain Resident Evil fans about Claire Redfield. So she's amazing. Anyways, this game is visually phenomenal. The sound is fantastic. It's really fun, but also challenging, which is a great thing. It's good when games can be both challenging and fun. It might start off, it might not start off challenging, But there are certain levels that I needed to like retry or be super careful during. Not to mention, early on with Mr. X, a villain you can't even really fight. He just stalks you, throughout the opening of the game, cutting off paths, making it hard for you to complete puzzles. I once got to a situation where I had to deal with a liquor and Mr. X in a small room, and I was just like, so like when you're in those situations when you have to deal with Mr. X, it's like this game is super intense and super difficult, and it's super good. Like I don't like it's hard to explain like how good something is when it comes to like being fun but and challenging. Cause I feel like the easy thing that journalists do is they just call it Souls like. The term Souls like is used a lot because it's an easy way to describe being a fun game but also being super challenging. Resident Evil Remake is super challenging and it's also still really fun. And it's not challenging to a point where you can't complete things. It's challenging to a point where if you keep dying, what you need to do is figure out what you're doing wrong and then do better. It's not a cakewalk, and that's a good thing. But anyways, my point is, it's a great game. It's a great experience, and I know it's a remake. How can a remake be in the top 10 games? It released in 2019, therefore it's on my list. I think it's phenomenal. You should try it out. Mortal Kombat 11 had the best story I've seen in a fighting game, period. NetherRealm went all out with this game's story, and honestly, it's the biggest reason for being in my top 10. I'm not even going to talk about the actual combat itself, the fighting itself. I know it's a fighting game, it's about the fighting. The biggest reason this game made my top 10 list is the story. I enjoyed it so much. I felt like a cinematic movie more than a video game. When it comes to like video games story modes, especially when fighting games, they're not really good. Fighting games don't usually have good story modes. Let's be real here. Fighting games usually slack on their story because it's not what most people go play their games for. People didn't buy a fighting game to play a story. They bought it to play a fighting game online with their friends or just online in general. Stories are usually just tacked on content to justify the price tag of $60 for a fighting game that you're not going to play longer than a few months. Just look at Jump Force and Xenoverse. Those games story modes are pretty boring and meh, even though I do like those games. But in general, fighting games don't put a lot into their story. NetherRealm didn't go that route when it came to the story mode for this game. They didn't want to have a man thrown on piece of content. It's well thought out. It's well written. Cutscenes are amazing. Yes, there are some questionable things that happen throughout the story, but overall the story is just so good, and the fighting is super good as well. And the game isn't just good because of that. And the game itself, all around, from top to bottom, is just a good game. But it is a fighting game. And the reason this game isn't higher on the list is because fighting games, for me especially, don't last long. They have a very short shelf life. They get old fast, no matter how good they are, and don't have much replay value to me, as other games on the list do. Fighting games don't have a lot of replay value to me, which is why it's number 7 on this list. To be honest, this is where things get super hard for me when it comes to these kind of lists. All 6 of these games are deserving of number 1 spot in Game of the Year because all 6 of these games are super good. Alas, someone has to be number 6, and that's Code Vein. Code Vein has been Namco's first attempt at replacing Dark Souls, since From Software bounced to create their own games for other publishers and as well as their own identity. Code Vein is a really good game that fused cel-shaded graphics with anime, which makes it some visual beauty but also unintentionally creates some visual issues. Sometimes because of the visuals, you can't see enemy attacks, making it harder to parry in certain lighting. Code Vein also suffers from something I like to call fake difficulty, which is basically where a game adds bullshit to their games to make things seem harder than they actually are. In this game, there's boss fights where it seems like their AOE attacks are way bigger than they need to be, and they put the balls in a small contained area, so they have those big AOE like sword swings or axe swings, and it kind of just makes the game seem more unfair than actually challenging. And that's what I have to call fake difficulty. Fake difficulty to me is when a game is being more unfair than actually being a challenge. You look at any Dark Souls fight and see that these fights are challenging, not unfair. Code Vein mechanics kind of make things seem more unfair than actually balanced and challenging, to kind of like inflate the game's actual difficulty. But even with that said, the bosses, when you take away their bullshit, are very easy, which is why they have their bullshit in them, because without them they're easy. There's one boss, I forgot the name of the boss, but he can summon minions to help him at his side. If you avoid letting him summon his minions, you will literally destroy that boss with ease. You can be a noob at this game, you can be a noob at Souls games. If you prevent him from summoning his minions, he can't really do anything into you other than try to attack. But if you go time your rolls, you're gonna win with ease. But I don't want you guys to listen to that and take it as me trashing the game or being hard on the game and saying it's a bad game. It's in the spot for a reason. It's a good game. It's a very good game. It's a fun game. It's a very engaging game, immersive game. There's a lot more to this game than what you think there is. There's a lot of background information when it comes to individual characters. A lot of characters are very good. It's mostly meant to be a co-op game, and overall the co-op in this game is great. It's a flawless experience. It works the way it's intended to work. Now, other than what I said about this game from a negative standpoint, everything else about this game is just really good. Overall, Cold Vein's a really good game that focuses more on capturing the atmosphere of co-op more so than solo. But if you're playing solo, it gives you NPCs who can go about the world with you, and you can explore and enjoy it that way. I hope we see a lot more Cold Vein. Hope this isn't the last time we see this game. Hope it's a very extensive franchise that gets multiple sequels. It truly is a work of art, and Bandai should definitely run with it as a flagship sole replacement for their studios. Starting out the top 5 is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and I'll be honest with you, it could have been number 4. It's super close when it gets to like these top 5s. The reason it's not number 4 is because of how short the game is, and at the time of recording, the fact that it doesn't even have New Game Plus. This game is freaking good. If you've been waiting for a single player Star Wars experience and haven't played this game, get on it. It's worth it. Even though it's really short for single player only game, it's really good. Check out my review of it. Check out Amy's review of it. Check out any review of it. The Souls-like combat for this game is amazing. Saber battles feel like movie saber fights. It's it's just that good when it comes to combat. Now, again, I was playing it all in my review. I don't have a lot of time with this video to go into full detail, but in general, the decision when it came to this being inspired by Souls combat was the best decision that they made, because this game is flawless. It's an amazing game, and again, its biggest flaw is the fact that it's just super short. I had so much fun with the boss fights. Man, the boss fights are so freaking good in this game. The boss fights by themselves can put this game in the top 5 for best game of the year. The story and lore just adds to it. And when I say the boss fights, I'm strictly talking about the fights against saber users, not the mini boss fights that turn into like just regular fights throughout the game, or against bounty hunters or big creatures. I'm talking about like actual full-on saber fights. Fights against Trilla, fights against the Ninth Sister, fights against Malicos. Those kind of fights, those boss fights that involves 2 saber users just going at it. Those are the fights in this game that are amazing. That by itself can put this game into the top 5 best game of the year. Anyways, I don't want to talk about the bosses too much. The game itself is really good. Not too big a fan of Cal himself, but the enemies like Trilla, Malicos, and other supporting characters are really good. And the cameo of Darth Vader was super cool and unexpected. That scene is a good reason to never watch walkthroughs or playthroughs before you play a game. That scene when it comes to Darth Vader is the best example of why you should play a game blind. I didn't feel, I wouldn't feel the impact of him being in the game if I knew he was there. So me not knowing that Vader was in the game made that scene even more powerful and as good as it was for me personally, because I didn't even know he was in the game to begin with. In general, Jedi Fallen Order is a great game. It's a phenomenal game. It's the best Star Wars game we have to date, in my opinion. Overall, there's games that have better things than it, but right now on console. So if you're a PC gamer, you're gonna bring up the Old Republic and things like that. We're to just talk about on console. Jedi Fallen Order, phenomenal.
You don't much look like her.
Yeah, I got my looks from my daddy. That's about all I got from him. But based on his research, I managed to cobble this. Consider it a gift in honor of us finally meeting. Meeting.
I'll take that.
Coming in at number 4, Devil May Cry 5 is so good. I don't care what the nostalgic people say. This is by far my favorite Devil May Cry experience from just the pure fun standpoint and from just the game itself. This is to me the best Devil May Cry game. Not for, the other games do have like better stories and better modes and something like Dante, but it's a total package. This game is just the best to me. This game was so fun, and I say, and I said it, and I said it a lot in my videos that nothing else really matters as long as you're having fun. What are you playing? Are you playing a video game? Yes. What's the point of playing a video game? To enjoy yourself, to have fun, and to just sit back and relax. This game allows you to do all of that. And again, in general, when it comes to gaming, having fun is the biggest point. This game is not only really good, but it's really fun. Check out my review of it. I enjoyed this game so much. Like, it has so much replay value. Like, that's another thing about video games that, to me at least, is a big deal. Replay value. If I can replay a game, that price tag of $60 is even more, not that big of a deal, because they have that saying that a game's worth is $1 per hour. So if I beat a game and it's like, let's say 60 hours, beat the game in 60 hours, I got my money's worth. But what if I play the game a second time, and a third time, or a fourth time? I'm getting so much value out of just one game. That's just because of how fun it is, and not even just because of how fun it is, because you can have one playthrough where you're focusing on playing Dante, or another playthrough you're focusing on playing Nero, or another playthrough focusing on playing V. All three are different in their own ways. They're all three great when it comes to their ways. There's no flaws when it comes to any of those three characters. To me, V is slightly more fun than Nero, but Dante was who I chose to play as my first playthrough because Dante first and foremost, and it's also my favorite character in the series. His moves are just so cool. And the cinematics in this game, the music in this game, everything was just so good and so well done. Devil May Cry 5 is a phenomenal game. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice is From Software's first game since putting Dark Souls on the shelf. Shinobi Souls, as I like to call it, it captures that difficulty that we have come accustomed to when it comes to From Software and their Souls games, but also maintains its own identity. Yes, it's a Souls-like game, but it's its own game. The combat evolved from what Souls games had. In some ways, Sekiro is more challenging than any Souls game. This is a really good game. It did win Game of the Year at the Game Awards, which isn't shocking to be honest, because award shows are usually just, which is actually pretty shocking in my opinion, because award shows are mostly popularity contests, and this game doesn't seem like it's a game to be very popular with the masses, but it did win Game of the Year for the Game Awards. Which just, and that doesn't just, challenging games don't translate to being popular. That's kind of what I want to get to, but this game does deserve all the praise that it has gotten and will get in the future. It is a masterpiece. It is a work of art. It is a phenomenal game. From the ground up, it is flawless. I can't stress you enough. If you are into Souls-like games, you need to play Sekiro. Don't be intimidated because it's From Software, and they're going to they take it up a notch with certain bosses. They take it up a notch when it comes to combat, and the whole the system that this game has. Don't be afraid to play this game because it's worth playing. It's a good game. At number 2, this game is going to surprise people that anyone would. At number 2, this is going to surprise people that anyone would even think of ranking this game as the runner-up for Game of the Year, or just in general put it on the top 10 for best game list. But I'll tell you right now, the performance of Laura Bailey carried this game this far up the list. Regardless of her, this game was going to be my top 6. It's a really good story. It's a great story. In my honest opinion, as someone that's been playing Gears of War since the first game, the story of Gears of War 5 is the best in the series. A lot of that has to do with Laura Bailey, whom did an amazing job as Kate. She's the best voice actor in game, in my opinion, just flat out. I don't care if anyone disagrees. To me, no one's better than Laura Bailey when it comes to voice acting. She should have won the award at the Game Awards. She deserves all the awards that you can get for voice acting. Her performance as Kate is ridiculous. I literally have a video you guys can watch where the entire video is just me explaining why Laura Bailey as Kate is amazing. Is that good to where her performance made this my runner-up for Game of the Year. She did just that good of a job. She's that amazing person. And even though this basically sounds like Laura Bailey is just the Game of the Year, the game itself is still good. The game itself is phenomenal. Yes, the multiplayer is kind of meh, but the story of Gears of War 5, the visuals, the combat, I don't want to say the combat, but the mechanics of how the game works, it's just great. Even when it comes to multiplayer. The multiplayer, I don't play it as often anymore because I just don't have the time for it. But for the most part, it's still a good multiplayer, and it's better than Gears of War 4, it's better than Judgment, it's better than Gears of War 3, and honestly, I would say multiplayer better than Gears of War 2, which is, blasphemy because Gears of War 2 is supposed to be the best Gears of War multiplayer. Either way, Gears of War 5 is my number 2. Phenomenal game. I love it. I can't wait to play more of it. I wish single-player games I wish multiplayer games had single-player DLC. So I would love to see more of Laura Bailey as Kate. I would love to further get into the future Gears of War 5 because this does end on a cliffhanger that's going to be fun. The ending is very, very good, and I don't want to spoil anything when it comes to Gears of War 5's ending, but you just have to play the game. Finally, we've come to number one, the best game of 2019, my game of the year, Metro Exodus. This game is perfection, just outright gaming perfection. The Metro series itself is a masterpiece, an example of capturing a great novel into a great video game. Just like when it comes to like The Witcher, which is also an amazing game that's also based on an amazing book. This is the perfect combination. It's a perfect combination of video games and perfect combination of video games and novels, or video games and movies if you want to throw that into, because The Witcher is getting its own Netflix series. Exodus is a great send-off for what could be, it might be, the end of our protagonist RDM's story. It definitely has the aura of that it is the last of RDM. It has that feeling this is the final game for him. This might be the final game in Metro in general. Is it? Who knows? They might do another one. Usually it's based on whether or not there is another book or not. So I don't know if there's another book coming anytime soon. If so, we will see. But this game by itself is just perfection. Even if you don't even read the books, it is perfection. Another game that I have reviewed, and you should check that review out. This game is not only astonishing from a story standpoint, but even visually. This game is so beautiful. It's one of those games where you'll be stopping a lot to take screenshots because it's just that beautiful of a game. It's so beautiful that the developers themselves knew just how good it's going to be when it comes to different landscapes. You can go from a frozen city to a desert to a lush forest. It maintains its beauty throughout the entire game, no matter how the lighting is, no matter what location you're in. It just stays a flawless visual masterpiece. And it comes to the combat, Metro combat is always super smooth. It aims to be like more realistic than your typical shooter, which may be unattractive to some people, but to me, I feel like it's just an amazing combat style. I feel like the mechanics of the game is wonderful. To me, it's a perfect game front to back, no flaws, beginning to end. I love this game. It's the game of the year in my opinion. It's the best game of 2019. That's just that. Anyways, guys, this is my top 10 games of 2019. I hope you all enjoyed. Leave any thoughts you have in the comments below. Leave your top 10 in the comments. You don't just have to be like, hey, nice video, whatever, or hey, your video sucks, your opinion sucks. You can just put down your top 10 games of the year. Let me know what games you enjoyed. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.